The moment my badge stopped working, I knew. It was Monday morning, 8:10 a.m., and I was exactly 10 minutes late, something that had never happened before. The scanner at the employee entrance blinked red, not green. Again, red. I swiped it a third time before someone from accounting walked by with a sympathetic glance. "You might want to go straight to the main lobby, Jessica. He's waiting for you." I didn't need to ask who he was, and in that moment, my chest tightened. Not from fear, but from disbelief. My name is Jessica Harper. I'm 38 years old, a single mother to a 6-year-old daughter named Lily, and I've worked 70-hour weeks for the last 3 years as Senior Operations Manager at Darington Technologies. In those 3 years, I've missed birthdays, doctor's appointments, and even Lily's kindergarten graduation. All to meet deadlines, cover for team shortages, and frankly, keep the company from imploding during its aggressive expansion. But apparently, none of that mattered. "Jessica," my boss, Craig Whitmore, called out as soon as I stepped into the lobby. He didn't offer a smile. His voice cut through the room like a blade. Several team members were nearby, hovering awkwardly, sensing something was off but not daring to intervene. "I need to speak with you. Now." I followed him through the glass doors into the main conference room. No, "How's your daughter?" Not even a glance of concern. Just the click of polished shoes on tile and the heavy thud of the door closing behind us. He turned, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You were 10 minutes late." "I know, I'm so sorry. Lily spiked a fever last night. I called the on-call nurse twice and I didn't sleep. I got here as fast as I could." Craig didn't even blink. "So that's the excuse?" I paused, confused. "Excuse? Craig, I haven't been late. Ever. He raised a hand to cut me off, as if I were an employee he barely tolerated. "I don't want to hear it. Your loyalty is clearly elsewhere. We can't have people here who think personal problems are a free pass to break protocol." I blinked. I've worked 70-hour weeks since 2020. I haven't used a single sick day. I haven't even taken a full vacation since I started. And last month, when the Atlanta branch system crashed, I stayed in the office for 36 hours straight. "And now you're late," he interrupted, his voice cold and controlled. "And you're making this emotional, which tells me exactly what I need to know." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a remote badge deactivator. I'd seen it once before, used only in high-level terminations. With a click and a blink of red light, he stared directly into my eyes and said, "Your badge has been deactivated. Security will escort you out." The room was silent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I just stared back at the man I had sacrificed 3 years of my life for. The man who had praised me for saving million-dollar contracts, the man who used my name in quarterly meetings as a prime example of dedication. I straightened my posture, nodded once, and said, "Understood." He looked disappointed, as if he expected me to cause a scene, as if drama would justify the public humiliation he'd just orchestrated. Instead, I walked out calmly, past my colleagues, past the reception desk, past the floor where I'd spent countless nights on client calls and crisis management. I didn't make eye contact with anyone, but I could feel the silence in every room I passed. Tight, suffocating, filled with disbelief. Security followed me to my desk as I packed up a framed photo of Lily, 2 notebooks, and a half-dead cactus I'd managed to keep alive longer than I'd been at the company. No one said a word, but a few eyes glistened. A few people knew this wasn't just about a late badge scan. This was personal. Craig had been waiting for an opportunity like this, and I'd handed it to him, courtesy of a sick child and a 10-minute delay. As I exited the building, the spring wind bit at my cheeks, and I felt the sting of shame settle in. Not for being fired, but for how quickly I was discarded. 3 years of loyalty erased in a single morning. At home, Lily was curled up on the couch under a blanket, watching cartoons. Her cheeks were flushed, but her fever had dropped slightly. I sat beside her, kissed her forehead, and smiled. "You're home early. she mumbled. Yeah, I said softly. I get to spend more time with you today. But as I sat there, staring at the photo from my desk now on the coffee table, my phone buzzed. A message preview lit up the screen. From Eric Dalton, Vice President of Global Logistics at Devon Incorporated. Subject: Urgent. Can you talk today? I stared at the screen, pulse rising. Craig had no idea what was coming. I stared at the message from Eric Dalton for a few long seconds, the words blurring on the screen. Urgent. Can you talk today? The last time I'd spoken to Eric was over a year ago during a joint logistics project between Darington Technologies and Devon Inc. He had been impressed with my ability to clean up a supply chain mess that threatened a $4.2 million deal. At the time, he called me the calm in a Category 5 storm. We'd kept in loose touch. A LinkedIn message here, a conference nod there. Nothing personal, nothing deep. But now he was reaching out with urgent in the subject line, on the exact day I got fired? That wasn't a coincidence. Still in my work clothes, I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, trying to steady my thoughts. The image of Craig's smug face flashed through my mind again. The click of that badge remote. The silence in the office as I walked out. It wasn't just termination. It was execution. Swift, cold, and very, very public. I picked up my phone and dialed. Jessica, Eric answered on the first ring. His voice was sharp, businesslike, but not unkind. Is now a good time? It is, I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. How can I help you? I heard what happened this morning. Of course he had. Word always traveled fast in this industry, especially when one of the top-performing managers in the Western Division gets fired like a security risk. I'm sorry it went down like that, he continued. But I won't lie, it pushed something we've been discussing internally at Devon to the top of our agenda. I blinked. Internally? We've been following your work for a while, Jessica. You built Darington's operations arm from a duct-taped spreadsheet system to a fully integrated, data-driven logistics model in under 2 years. You turned their East Coast division around in 2021. And you're the only reason that Atlanta recovery didn't collapse the whole southern corridor last fall. I swallowed hard. I'd always known I did good work, but hearing it listed out like that, like evidence in a courtroom, hit something deep. We want to talk to you about joining us, he said plainly. We were planning to approach you later this quarter, but now that you're free, we'd like to accelerate things. My brain buzzed with 1,000 thoughts, but I stayed composed. I appreciate that. Truly. But I'll need a day or two to process everything. Of course, Eric said. We'll schedule a call for Wednesday. Just know this. What Craig did wasn't just cruel. It was foolish. His loss could be our gain. And I'm not just saying that. I've got board approval and budget in place. This is real. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a moment, the glass of water still full in front of me. This wasn't just about getting fired. It was about what the firing revealed. I thought back to my first year at Darington. I'd taken the job 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized. Lily was only 3 then, still waking up crying in the night, still confused about why Daddy didn't come home anymore. I'd accepted the position for stability. I told myself it was just a stepping stone. But when Craig promoted me after only 7 months and started calling me his go-to fixer, I leaned in. I gave more. I stayed late. I said yes to everything. I remember the winter of 2021. Lily caught RSV, and I worked remotely from the hospital room while she was on oxygen. Craig called me 3 times that night. Not to ask how she was, but to get updates on a shipping delay from our Dallas warehouse. I gave him the updates. I didn't push back. I thought loyalty would be rewarded. Last year, when our department hit its highest efficiency rating in company history, I stayed up until midnight building the presentation he used to impress the board. He didn't even include my name. But I told myself it didn't matter. One day, it'll pay off, I kept saying. Until it didn't. until 10 minutes of being human, of being a mother, erased 3 years of being a machine. That evening, as Lily slept soundly in her room, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't open job boards. I didn't update my resume. Instead, I wrote a list. Everything I had done in the past 3 years that went above and beyond. 16 overnight shifts, 3 major project recoveries, $11.7 million in saved accounts, 0 vacation days taken, 1 child raised alone. As I looked at that list, the anger I hadn't let myself feel began to rise. Craig had framed me as disloyal, but I had been loyal to a fault. And he had underestimated something far more dangerous than revenge, a woman with nothing to lose and the receipts to prove it. My phone buzzed again. A message from Thomas, our senior analyst. He's acting like you were some disposable intern. People are furious. Something tells me this isn't over. He was right. It wasn't. And 1 week later, Craig Whitmore would find himself on the receiving end of a phone call that would unravel everything. By Tuesday, the fallout had begun. It started with whispers, then text messages, then calls that came in quick succession from former colleagues. I wasn't answering most of them. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't ready to talk about it. Not yet. I needed space. Not to grieve the loss of the job. I wasn't grieving Craig's approval, or the long hours, or the empty praise. I was grieving my own silence. The times I should have spoken up and didn't. The times I let his tough love pass as leadership. The times I thought that being needed meant I was valued. But the people I had worked beside, the ones who'd seen me carry that department week after week, they weren't staying silent. Thomas was the first to call again. I answered this time. "Hey," I said, settling onto my living room couch. Lily was napping, finally fever-free. The house was quiet for the first time in days. "You should know what's happening," he said immediately. "There was a meeting this morning. Craig blamed your dismissal on, get this, repeated tardiness and insubordination. He said you'd been warned multiple times." I sat up straight. "That's a lie." "I know. Everyone in that room knew. You've never even been late before." HR looked stunned. Someone asked to see the documentation, and Craig said it was confidential. The energy was weird. A few of us looked around like, are we really letting this happen? Are people buying it? He sighed. "Some are, but not the ones who worked closest with you. Michelle looked like she wanted to throw something. And the junior staff? They're scared. If they can fire you like that, what does that say about the rest of us?" That was the heart of it. My firing wasn't just unjust. It was a warning shot. I thanked Thomas and hung up, my thoughts racing. Craig wasn't just trying to erase me. He was rewriting history, controlling the narrative before someone else could, before I could. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't interested in a public fight. Not yet. Because the best kind of justice doesn't come from shouting. It comes from timing. By Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed again, this time with a calendar invite from Eric Dalton's assistant. Zoom call, 11 a.m. I logged in 10 minutes early, my hair freshly brushed, a clean navy blouse on, coffee in hand. Professional, calm, and focused. At exactly 11 o'clock, Eric appeared on screen with 2 other people. Maya Jensen, Devon Ridge's chief people officer, and Leo Campos, head of strategic operations, all names I recognized, all decision makers. "Jessica," Maya said warmly, "thank you for taking the time. I'm grateful for the opportunity." Eric got right to the point. "We'd like to offer you a formal position, Director of Strategic Logistics. You'd be leading cross-department teams and spearheading our national optimization rollout starting next quarter." I blinked, the words hitting faster than I could absorb. "The salary is competitive," Maya continued. "But more importantly, we're committed to work-life balance. Your schedule would be flexible, remote when needed. We understand your role as a parent is part of who you are, not an obstacle." That was when it happened. Tears welled in my eyes, unexpected and uncontrollable. I turned away from the camera for a moment, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," I whispered, dabbing quickly with the tissue. "It's just, that's the first time anyone said that to me, that being a mom wasn't a problem." Maya's smile softened. "It's not. It never should have been." I accepted the offer on the spot, not out of revenge, not to prove something, but because for the first time in years, I felt like a person, not just a machine with a title. That afternoon, the Darington rumors began snowballing. A message from Michelle popped up. "Just found out Craig is trying to block a reference check about you. HR is not happy." Another from an intern I had mentored. "Your desk is still empty. Like they don't know what to do without you." And then this, from Thomas. "Eric Dalton called the office today. Asked for Craig. Apparently said it was urgent." That message hit like a thunderclap. Craig's perfect PR cover, his fake story about my insubordination, was about to meet something stronger than denial. A client with power, a company with leverage, a reputation he couldn't silence. He thought he could erase me in front of the entire office and walk away untouched. But what he didn't realize was that I had left behind more than just a cactus and a framed photo on my desk. I had left behind a reputation, a ripple. And now the tide was starting to turn. By Thursday morning, Craig's carefully manufactured image was cracking. And this time, it wasn't behind closed doors. Michelle called me, her voice low but quick, like she was stepping outside just to talk. "You won't believe what's going on here." I leaned against my kitchen counter, phone pressed to my ear. "Craig had an emergency meeting with the executive team first thing this morning. Something about containing misinformation. But no one knows what that even means. Then we got a company-wide email asking employees not to comment on personnel matters. It was bizarre. I could picture it. The panicked scrambling, the vague threats masked as policy reminders. The signs of someone losing control but trying desperately to pretend otherwise." Michelle continued. "Word is, Devon called again. Not just Eric. Their legal team. Apparently, Craig's trying to bury your termination under security concerns, so he doesn't have to explain why their favorite ops contact suddenly vanished." I didn't say anything at first. I let the silence speak for itself. "Jess," she added, "people are scared. But they're not buying the story anymore. They're remembering who actually kept this place running. It wasn't him." That was the first time I let myself feel the smallest ounce of satisfaction. Not gloating, not revenge, recognition. Later that afternoon, I received a message from HR. Not Darington's, but from Devon Ridge's HR team, confirming my new employee paperwork and onboarding schedule. There it was. The official start of my next chapter. No looking back. But Craig was very much still looking back. Still trying to clean up a mess he didn't realize had grown bigger than his corner office. Thomas messaged me again. Craig tried to schedule a call with Eric to clear the air. Eric refused. Said he's taking it up with the board. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a personal win. It was a shift. One man's arrogance was putting millions in partnerships at risk. You don't just humiliate your highest performing employee in front of a company and expect to walk away clean. Not when that employee had built the relationships you relied on. Friday came, the day Craig received the call. I didn't witness it, but I didn't need to. The aftermath said enough. Thomas's message came in first. Craig stormed out of the office after a 40-minute call, slammed his door so hard the lights flickered. No one's seen him since. A few minutes later, Michelle added, "Confirmed. Devon Ridge is pulling back. They said they're reevaluating external vendor relationships, which is basically code for we're done." And just like that, the number Craig had bragged about at every board meeting, the Darington Devon Ridge account, was slipping through his fingers. I wondered if he thought about the moment he called me disloyal, if he replayed it in his mind. The way he deactivated my badge in front of the team. The way he expected me to fall apart. Instead, I walked out. With dignity. With my name intact. And now, a week later, the silence I left behind had turned into an echo so loud even the board couldn't ignore it. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat on the balcony with a glass of tea, watching the city glow in the twilight. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the transcript popped up. Jessica, this is Heather Chambers, chairwoman of the board at Darington. I'd like to speak with you regarding recent developments. If you're willing, please call me back at your earliest convenience. I smiled faintly, placing the phone face down. They were starting to realize the truth. That leadership isn't proven in titles or corner offices. It's proven when the storm hits. And who's holding the line? Craig hadn't led. He'd controlled. He'd dominated, micromanaged, and weaponized policy. But when the pressure came, he had no foundation to stand on. No trust. No team. He'd mistaken fear for respect. And now, without me there to hold the weight, everything was collapsing. Monday would mark the start of my new position at Devon, a company that valued more than just availability, a company that saw motherhood as strength, not a liability, a company that had my name in the door before I'd even stepped inside. But before that, I had one more decision to make. To take that call from the board chair, or let Craig finally face the consequences of his own design. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew this much. What he did to me wasn't going to be forgotten, because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud. It's watching everything they built crumble, without ever having to raise your voice. Monday arrived with a chill in the air, but inside me it felt like spring. I zipped up my best blazer, the one I used to save for quarterly reviews that led nowhere, and tied my hair back. As I glanced in the mirror, I realized something strange. I wasn't nervous, not even a little. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking into a building where I had to prove I belonged. This time, I'd been invited in, for what I'd already done and who I already was. Lily stood in the hallway, holding her backpack. "Are you going to work today, Mommy?" "I am," I smiled, "to a brand new job." She tilted her head. "Do they know you're my mom?" I knelt down and looked into her eyes. "Yes, and they think that's one of the best parts about me." She grinned. That was enough. Devon Ridge's offices were nothing like Darington's gray cubes and dim lighting. Here, glass walls let the sunlight pour in. The energy was sharp but collaborative. People moved with purpose, but not panic. At reception, I was greeted with a welcome badge already printed, a branded notebook, and a handwritten card from Eric. "Jessica, we're thrilled to have you. Your reputation precedes you. Let's build something amazing." I hadn't even reached my desk before two team leads introduced themselves and offered to walk me through their open projects. No defensiveness, no ego. Just professionals eager to collaborate. At 10 a.m., I joined my first executive strategy meeting. I wasn't sitting silently in the back row anymore. I was at the table. Maya, the chief people officer, gave me a nod before I spoke. "Jessica, I'd love to hear your thoughts." I opened my notes calmly. Years of preparation now flowing out like second nature. I presented a risk assessment model I'd built over the weekend to help Devon Ridge streamline vendor reviews, something that had taken Darington months to even begin addressing. When I finished, the room was quiet for half a beat. Then came nods, then questions, real ones, thoughtful ones. And then Eric leaned back and smiled. "Exactly why we hired you." I wasn't holding my breath anymore. Meanwhile, back at Darington, the silence I had left behind had turned to noise. Michelle messaged me during lunch. 3 resignations this morning. One from procurement, one from logistics, one from IT. All said the same thing in their exit interviews. Jessica was the reason I stayed this long. And then, Craig's office door is still closed. No one's seen him since Friday afternoon. Rumor is the board is reviewing certain decisions. Whatever that means. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. The avalanche had already begun. That evening, Lily and I sat at the kitchen table eating spaghetti, a quiet, simple dinner. She told me about a book she was reading in class. I told her about a big table in a big room where everyone listened when I spoke. She chewed her pasta, then asked, "Are you the boss now?" I laughed. Something like that. "But you're still my mom, right?" I leaned across the table and kissed her forehead. "Always." And in that moment, I realized something powerful. All those years I spent trying to prove I could be a perfect employee despite being a mother. I had missed the point. My strength wasn't in spinning plates. It was in knowing which ones mattered most. Later that night, I sat on the couch with my laptop, reviewing onboarding files for my new team. I had just closed my screen when my phone buzzed again. A voicemail transcript appeared. "Jessica, this is Heather Chambers. I understand you're now with Devon. I respect your decision, but I'd still appreciate 10 minutes of your time. There are ongoing concerns at Darington that I believe you should be aware of." I reread it twice. So they knew. And they were starting to reckon with it. Craig hadn't just made a bad call. He'd exposed the rot beneath the surface, the cracks in their culture, the myth of loyalty that only flowed one way. Now they wanted insight, maybe even absolution. But the truth was, I had already moved on. I wasn't looking for apologies, because you don't rise by clinging to the people who dragged you down. You rise by stepping into rooms where you don't have to apologize for your existence. It was Wednesday afternoon when the final piece clicked into place. Devon quarterly operations review was in full swing. I had just finished presenting a strategy shift that would reduce third-party vendor costs by 17%, and the executive team was already discussing how to scale the model. It was the kind of meeting where ideas flowed like water, where no one cared who spoke first, only what was said. After the meeting, Eric pulled me aside. "Just wanted you to know," he said casually, "we've officially ended the vendor agreement with Darington. Legal sent the notice this morning." I felt a twinge of surprise, not because it happened, but because it was so quiet. No dramatic final word, no public declaration, just a signature, a timestamp, and a shift in business. "They're done?" I asked. He nodded. "We're moving everything in-house or to smaller firms. We'll still need a transition coordinator to manage the split. We'd like that to be you." It was a moment full of symmetry. 1 week ago, Craig had fired me in front of my peers, badge deactivated, dignity stripped. And now, I was the one overseeing the offboarding of the same account he thought I had no claim to. Poetic justice, I suppose. But I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I just nodded, calm and clear. "Of course, I'll handle it." Because I wasn't here to settle scores. I was here to lead. That night, I finally returned Heather Chambers' call. She answered quickly, voice clipped but composed. "Jessica, thank you for returning my message." "Of course." "I'll be direct," she said. "We've been reviewing the circumstances around your termination. It's become clear that there were serious procedural issues and personal biases involved." I didn't speak. I let her continue. "We were unaware of the extent of your contributions until we began to audit the accounts you managed. It appears your departure has significantly destabilized both client trust and internal morale." There it was, the admission. Not quite an apology, but close. She cleared her throat. "Craig Whitmore has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation." Another pause. "We'd like to formally offer you reinstatement at Darington, at an executive level, full autonomy, substantially revised compensation, and a public acknowledgement of your achievements." My fingers tightened slightly around the phone. It would have been easy to imagine this moment a week ago. Craving it, waiting for it, wanting them to come back and see me, truly see me, after all those years. But something in me had shifted. I didn't want a title born out of damage control. I didn't want their validation now that it cost them something. "I appreciate the offer," I said calmly, "but I've already accepted a position elsewhere." Heather didn't push. "May I ask where?" "I think you already know." Another pause. This one longer. Then, "I do." There was no bitterness in her voice, only a quiet understanding. I wish you well, Jessica, she said. Thank you. I hope Darington learns from this. I believe we will. We ended the call on polite professional terms. No hard edges, no lingering resentment. Just closure. The next morning, I stood in front of my team at Devon, running a workshop on account management transitions. One of the younger analysts, Ava, stayed behind afterward. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. It's rare to see someone like you, someone who's good at their job and makes space for the rest of us. I smiled. You don't have to choose between being strong and being kind. That's something I learned the hard way. She nodded thoughtfully before leaving the room. As I packed up my notes, I looked at the large windows framing the skyline. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking out wondering if I belonged somewhere else. I was already there. Later that week, I received a package. No sender listed. Inside was a small, square box. I opened it to find my old desk photo, the one of Lily and me, perfectly intact. Taped to the back was a handwritten note on company stationery. For what it's worth, you were never invisible. We just didn't have your courage. Thank you for showing us how to walk out with our heads high. M. I didn't have to guess who M was. I placed the photo on my new desk at Devon, not as a reminder of where I'd been, but of what I'd overcome. They say revenge is best served cold, but I don't believe that anymore. Because the best revenge? It's not silence. It's not success. It's not even justice. It's becoming the version of yourself you were never allowed to be. And never looking back.